Shalom, shalom. My first and foremost, before I get started, as always, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Kadash. Give honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone that rule well. Peace and salutations to the Hakim that's pushing his word in truth and sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth, waking up the hopeful elect and risking their lives and freedoms to do so. Definitely more so now than ever before. This is the brother Zion Amar from the GMS Detroit Back Camp. Coming back with another video. Alright, dealing with the signs of the times. Alright, concerning Jacob's trouble. Alright. And it's like here we go again, right? Another hot summer, right? And things are heating up. After a while, you have to say, is it a coincidence or not? Right? Concerning these protests, so-called protests, right? A lot of this stuff is orchestrated, right, by, your the powers that be, right? From the elites on down, and certain people that have influence, or namely money. They come from a family that has wealth, right, to where they can help steer certain things, all right, in a certain direction. All right, so yeah, we're here again, like I said, another hot summer where things are heating up, and according to this article, I'm going to kind of skim through it, right, dealing with what this billionaire Walmart heiress, right, promotes nationwide anti-Trump protests. All right, so anti-Trump, so they're not for Trump, they're not. Right, she's well, let's read more. This lady right here, Walmart heiress Christy Walton, right? Basically, the ones behind, Walmart, Sam's Club, alright? It says one of the richest women in America has joined a small group of billionaires speaking out against President Donald Trump. Now, you have something called controlled opposition, right? So on the surface, it may look like one is against the other, but in reality, behind the scenes, behind that curtain, it's just one big party. It's just one. Everyone is really on the same page. Because at the end of the day, all these different type of events, protests, and everything in between, it's all basically all roads lead to the MOTB, all right, which is the brain CHIP, or the CHIP and the brain CHIP, all right, which is a device, a physical device that they want to insert within your body, within your flesh, all right, to show ownership over the said individual. For whoever receives that device, they will be owned by the elites, right? And due to that, there's no salvation for you if you're an Israelite, right? Because now you're a new creature, you're a new created thing, because now you're man and machine, right? Essentially a cyborg in the Heavenly Father, right? You're basically you're not one of his. So again, all roads lead to the MOTB. When you see news articles like this, these different protests that drum up, right? There's always a Jake, getting slain, in the street by a cop, typically around, these summer months, right? To help escalate, that insurrection, right? Of the people basically coming against the government and these government officials. Alright, just reading on here a little more. It says the 76-year-old mountain was worth estimated in 19.3, according to Forbes. Paid to take out a full page advertisement in the New York Times on Sunday, calling on readers to mobilize on Saturday, June 14th. It says the advertisement appears to be an escalation of the one she paid for in March in the Times print edition. It says at the top of the ad are the words "No Kings," which appear to reference a political organization that's coordinating hundreds, right, of anti-Trump protests across the U.S. this Saturday, June 14th. The same day is slated to host a military parade in Washington, D.C. Organizers of the counter-protests told you see when it say iOS, right? They are expecting this to be the largest single-day rally since the start of the administration. All right. Said No King spokesperson Andrew Cook told Forbes there would be more than 1,800 events across the country. Wow. The group is not planning a protest in D.C. as part of their plan to make action everywhere else. Yeah, sure. What else? So that's that. You know, if you want to read more, all right, just simply put that in. All right, billionaire Walmart heirs promotes nationwide anti-Trump protests. All right. Now, at Google, or rather, ChatGPT, right, to see, just to get a little more insight concerning this protest, because this is a big deal, right? 1,800 different events across the U.S. All right, so something's Esau is up to something. Let's just put it like that. All right. It said, put in the chat GPT, what is the No Kings protest? It says the No Kings protest is a slogan and movement used by individuals and groups who oppose authoritarianism, monarchy, or any form of centralized, unaccountable power. The phrase "No Kings" has historical roots and modern relevance, and is used in different contexts depending on political or cultural situation. Right, concerning politics, like I said, both parties are on the same team in reality. Right, it ain't no left against the right, it ain't no liberal against conservative, and ain't no Democrat versus Republican. All right, those are all two wings of the same bird. The bird being the eagle, which is what the national, mascot, if you will, for America. But it lets you know that it's fair to get it real quick. This is Revelation 13. Those two horns. Revelation 13 and 11, and it reads, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. Right, that beast being America, right? Because it basically, America is basically the rebirth of the Roman Empire, right? It This is Rome 2.0. Everything is fashioned after Rome here in America. All right, by way of having a Senate. All right, by way of, legalese, Latin on your money, nouveau, ordo seclorum, right? The architecture, right, of America, all right? The Colosseums today, stadiums, right? Which that goes back to the Greeks, but the Romans, they continue, that idea of, having games and different events and contests, to basically distract the people, right? And give the people something to hold on to. Now we have the NBA Finals, right? It's baseball season, right? There's always something going on a year round, right? To keep people, again, distracted, keep them on a low vibration, to keep them from basically exposing, right, what these higher ups are doing. Right, but just to read this again, it says NIBL, another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. Right, horns represents power. Right, in the scriptures. Right, if you were to get pierced through with a horn, you're gonna know the power because you're gonna be dead. Right, it's gonna impale you. Okay, so 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, right? Dragon or dracon, right? In the Greek, right? You had a guy by the name of Dracon during the Greek Empire, who was an Athenian lawgiver, right? And basically he would bring harsher offenses for the smallest of crimes. Everything basically was a death sentence on his watch, So we're beginning to see that in Trump, with this whole ICE raid, right? Getting the so-called, they'll say immigrants, right? Chiefly referring to the northern tribe, so-called Hispanic tribes, right? Even though in reality, right, they belong here, right? They were here, right, far before, right, the so-called white man came over to the Americas, right? But they have the nerve, right, to call the people that originally possessed this land immigrants, right? Just a tidbit to show you who the devil is, right? But now, today, he's speaking as a dragon, right? With what? His legislation and his laws, right? His unrighteous decrees, right? Where he's sending agents, to round up, so-called Mexicans and shipping them out of the country, when in reality, the so-called white man is the biggest immigrant there is. He's the one that doesn't belong here in reality. But, prophecy has to play out. But those 2 horns, are referring to your Democratic Party and the Republican Party, right? 2,000 years ago, it was the patricians, which would be likened to the Republican Party, and the plebeians, which is dealing with the common folk, which would be likened to the Democratic Party today, which Jake is heavily, tied today, right? Anyone that's representing the Democratic Party, right, without even hearing any of their policies, Jake is still simple enough, to vote, Democrat, which in reality you shouldn't be voting at all, right? Because neither party is for your cause, But so that's that. Let's go back. This is something I wanted to get belief that comes out of California, but basically you're deemed crazy. Matter of fact, let's get it, because I think I searched it earlier. Yeah, here we go. Yep. See, what does 5051 mean? Right? It says in the context of California law, at 5150, excuse me. Actually, it's a 5150, but it still holds weight, all right? Because it's interesting that they put those numbers together, 50, 50, and 1, right? So a 5150 means an involuntary psychiatric hold, also known as a 72-hour hold. It's a temporary detention, all right? So see, that's a hint and a clue, right? Because they speak, they do a lot of messaging in numbers, in songs, and colors, all right? It's enchantments that's playing on the people's, psyche, playing on your spirit, all right? So trust, know, and believe, right? This is really centered around. It's centered around getting a lot of jakes and hell, just people in general, America, riled up, right? To create race wars, civil wars, all right? To create detentions, right? Where people will be arrested, okay? And put in, hell, some type of internment camp, which Walmart's is the greatest, place for that, right? Any Walmart can be turned into basically a concentration camp overnight, virtually overnight, right? Because it's big, it can house a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, we seen what happened. What was that? Katrina, where they turned the stadium down there into an internment camp. All right. So now you got Walmarts all over the country. Coincidentally, this event is going to happen all over the country. Right, all on the same day while, right, Trump is having his military parade. Right, so it's a spirit that's going out, a spirit of warfare. As I mentioned, race wars, civil war, and ultimately the war of all wars, World War III. Is how this thing is gonna, it's gonna culminate to, right, to where America will be destroyed by thermonuclear fire, right? But let's read some more of this. It says, the purpose to provide evaluation and treatment for the person, often due to a perceived danger to themselves or others, or due to grave disability. Right, so that's that, just, some food for thought there. When I saw that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. 50, 50, and 1. Again, it's a play on numbers. But anyway, it says this event coincides with President Donald Trump's 79th birthday, Flag Day, wow, and a significant military parade. Also, it's a lot of witchcraft going on. What happened when Herod had his birthday? He killed the prophets, namely John the Baptist. So be on the lookout. The scriptures say that the enemy should come in like a flood. That flood being basically America's military force. They're going to come against the prophets, which they're already doing it, They take down channels, videos, they try to censor you, cancel you, right? We got legislation going out for those that basically read the Bible on street corners to be jailed indefinitely, right? Without no, process, right? So it's a lot going on behind the adversary, right? And our greatest adversary on this earth, all right, is the so-called white man, all right? He's an adversary to you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Blacks, and Native Americans, all right? And he shows it on the daily. He shows that he hates you, right? Because spiritually, he understands that you have something that he can't obtain, and that's the birthright, which basically entails the kingdom of heaven, all right? True kings of the world to come, all right? It says, what else? Washington, D.C. marking the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. Protest aims to challenge what organized perceived as authoritarian tendencies and the centralization of power under the Trump administration. Right? Trump is just a puppet, right? If you didn't know that, president basically means the first servant. Right? So he's serving really he's serving the elites, all right, the real movers and shakers, the real, which is basically the elites, start with the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, which is basically the same line, all right, but these are the true people that really got money, all right, Walton, yes, you got some money, but it ain't nothing like that Rothschild money. Old money. See, all these other people, they're just puppets. What else? Oh yeah, I found this interesting too. It said, nationwide participation, as it mentioned in the other article, right? In the previous article, it says over 1,800 protests are scheduled across all 50 states. Right, including major cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Houston, Boston, Chicago. Right, in Michigan, demonstrations are planned in Detroit, Ferndale, and Livonia, which is all very interesting. Right, all those major cities are where we have a lot of Jakes in all of those major cities that we just read. A lot of Israelites, right? Happening, in no suburban town. It's happening in the heart of the city, of the major cities of all these states across America. Right? Because again, this is centered around, or this is slated for Jacob's trouble. Right? Let's get that. Jeremiah. As ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Yeah. Man don't get pregnant, right? Right, we push forth the seed, right, to the woman conceives the seed, right? And she pushes forth the child. So basically, in layman's term, like what's going on to where these men are looking like they water broke, why they look so basically worried, apprehensive, afraid, what's going on. It says, wherefore do I see every man with his hand on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned to paleness, right? You confused, you perplexed, right? It's like my old school cartoons, the Looney Tunes cartoons, when the cartoon would become like pale, that represents that they basically scared to death, right? It says, alas, for that day is great, so that is none like it is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. The he, all right, is referring to Jacob, those are the ones that will be saved out of it. Alright? But Jacob, 2/3 of our people, they're going to be destroyed. You know, you've been having Jake as of late showing his hand, showing that he's training, he's shooting, you know, at these parks and wherever else, you know, which it ain't enough. And moreover, hey, the scriptures let you know that that ain't the move to make, because, all right, that's not your blessing. All right, your blessing is not to be carnal. Your blessing is to be spiritual. All right. So if you're hearing this message, you ought to turn back, all right, to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and repent, right, and pray for mercy, pray for forgiveness, pray for salvation, all right, because there's going to be a lot of blood in these streets. If not now, soon. You know, it's a build up, all right, it's a build up. So